Okay, so we talked about sculpture, like stone figurative sculpture in the Archaic period in the last lecture, and now I want to talk about ceramics or pottery. So we've looked at pottery before in this unit and in the prehistoric Aegean unit. Skill in ceramics is an art form that continues all the way through the prehistoric Aegean, up through ancient Greece in the Archaic, and all the way through the classical and Hellenistic periods. So let's take a look at some of the things that have developed. So one of the big things is we start having artist signatures. So we start knowing more about the people who actually created the artwork, which in ancient times is kind of unusual. We don't see it a ton. So we start seeing that more. And one of the first places we start seeing that is in ceramics. So this is known as the Francois vase. It is a Attic black figure volute crater. Again, a crater, has the big mouth. In this case, it's the kind that has the two handles on the side. And this is from Italy, but a part of Italy that was basically a Greek city-state at this time. Okay, black figure, what does that mean? We've talked about it a little bit before. So it's pretty straightforward. That just means the figures and the designs are painted in black slip on the vase itself. In this case, we know the name of the painter of the vase and the person who threw the vase, who made the actual form. So the painter was Clytius, and the ceramicist was Ergonomos, okay? So we know both of their names, which is, again, sort of unusual. Sometimes it's the same person who does both. In this case, it was two different people. So to create this look of this black figure painted vases, they figure out this kind of ingenious process. So first they paint the design in black slip, and then there's a three-phase firing process. The first is oxidizing, which turns the pot and the design red. Everything turns red. Then they reduce the heat and fire it again, which turns the design and the pot black. And then they re-oxidize it, they fire it again, which turns the coarser pot material red as it reabsorbs the oxygen, because it's more coarse, so it's more porous, so more oxygen can get in, but it leaves the finer design black. So slip, what the design is painted in, is this really, really fine, almost silt-like clay that's really like watered down. And because it's so fine, in the re-oxidizing, it doesn't absorb the oxygen, and so it stays black. So it's this kind of complicated process that they figure out at an early time. You'll notice a difference from what we had in the geometric and orientalizing periods. We have more detail in these figures, and the figures are more dominant than the geometric kind of patterning that was there before. So the figures are more dominant because it's narrative driven, right? So these are not just designs, they're telling us a story, they're narrative, right? So we can kind of read them in bands like sequentially. Okay, so we see, I'll let this change. There we go. So we also see something with the identification of these specific artists and works being signed. People start kind of collecting or being interested in getting works by specific people. One of those people is Ezekias, and he becomes quite famous. This is one of his famous designs, which is Achilles and Ajax playing a dice game. And this design then gets copied by other people because it's so popular. I think it's a really interesting thing that this particular design becomes so popular, because who are these people? Okay, Achilles and Ajax. Remember our guy Homer, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey? Well, in the Iliad, which is the story of the battle of Greece and Troy, there's some major heroes, because it's a battle story, right? And Achilles is one of the major heroes. So if you saw the now kind of old movie Troy, which is it's basically the Iliad, the character that Brad Pitt plays, Springfield's own, our hometown guy, Brad Pitt plays Achilles. So that's the big hero of the story. And then Ajax is his friend, who is also like a big time hero. He's like the really big guy that's really strong. I can't remember who plays him in the movie. But anyway, they're like these big war hero guys, okay? And so you would think that a popular design would be them like in battle, like fighting the Trojans or something, or throwing a spear or doing something like this. But no, The thing that is popular is this depiction of the two of them just like hanging out in between battles back at camp. Like they've got their spears and shields and stuff, but they're playing. They're playing a dice game together. So it's this kind of glimpse of leisure and normalcy within this war atmosphere, which I think is really interesting that becomes a popular motif. This is an amphora. Remember the difference between crater and amphora. Amphoras have a smaller opening, have the two big handles on the side, okay? And again, we have black figures, meaning that it's the same process, the three firing, oxidizing process to create that kind of look. Okay, we then also have a couple of different people who become fairly famous, but they get identified by their work instead of by their specific name. So the Endicottis painter is famous for this painting of Endicottis that he did on a vase, and so his work gets credited like this. What I think is super interesting about these is in each of these divided areas, it's one vase shown from both sides. So this is a style that is called bilingual painting. What does bilingual mean? It means you speak two languages, right? So in terms of ceramics, when something is bilingual in terms of the way it's painted, it means on one side it's red figure and on the other side it's black figure. So it's that same firing process, but they do kind of the opposite on each side. So you have the same image twice, but depicted so that it's in opposite coloration, okay? So one side red figure on black, the other side black figure on red, which is pretty neat. It's a kind of neat variation on this. Okay, the other thing that starts to become popular is this idea of red figure painting, but we also start seeing some other colors sneaking in. So you see the little bit of kind of yellow for this guy's beard, and this is Heracles for the beard and the hair, and then also the green on the laurel wreath around that figure's head. So we also see some introduction of some different kinds of color sneaking in, and this artist is named Euphronios, who also becomes pretty popular. This kind of vessel is called a calyx crater, which basically means it's like a cup, it's like a drinking vessel. And so we see these slightly more complicated designs. Even the kind of banner at the top and the bottom, it's a little bit floral. It's more complicated than just the meander kind of designs that we saw in the geometric period. Another thing that I just like to throw in here, because there's something kind of wild about this, what's strange about this? She's naked. It's a woman who's naked, right? Up until this point in ancient Greece, women are always clothed, men are nude, right? So this is a kind of a shocking thing. And this isn't even like a goddess. It's not even in the context of a specific mythological tale. This is by Onesimus, and this is just a girl preparing to bathe. So it's just a normal young woman. It's in the interior of a calyx, so a drinking vessel. So you would just see it like looking down into the cup, right? And there's a couple interesting things. The nudity is the most striking thing. This would have been sort of surprising, but it is inside a cup, so it's kind of a secret naked person. We see the meander or key pattern around, so kind of a reference back to the geometric phase, which we see that pattern still staying in ceramics kind of throughout the Archaic period. Also, there's some foreshortening happening in perspective. She's turned to the side, and it's pretty okay foreshortening. It's not like super accurate at the best, but we see kind of pretty successful foreshortening in perspective, which is something we haven't really seen yet. So it's showing us that there's more of an interest in naturalism and portraying things and how they actually look. Okay, next we're going to look at architecture in this period.